one of the first college options that your students have access to after high school graduation is attending a California community college. As you can see, we have about 116 throughout the entire state, although they are designed for students to attend more in a local aspect, in this case, the California Community College, they offer an associate degree, some training certificates, and then they obviously have, like transfer routes for students who want to pursue a bachelor's degree, but they want to go ahead and get started at the community college. Ideally, the time that a student who would like to transfer to a state university or a UC or eventually another private university is 2 years. The ideal time for a student to spend there is about 2 years. Unfortunately, it's been a higher number of students that spend more than 3-4 years, sometimes 5 years at the community college, when in reality, the amount of years that should take students to complete a bachelor's degree is 4. So just letting you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with students to go into a community college first and then transfer over to a CSU or a UC, depending on what they want to do. But what is really important is making sure that the students understand what pathway they want to follow. Do they want to follow the associate degree to transfer, meaning that they're going to work on their general education for their first 2 years and then transfer over to a CSU or a UC? Or do they just want a training certificate? Or do they want to go into like those type of, technical careers that you only need an associate's degree for? There's a lot of different options for them. But, it's important, again, that if they're planning on doing a transfer route, that they actually understand which classes they need to take and which ones do count to be transferable. And in our case right here, most of our students do end up going into, those who do end up going into a community college end up going to MJC. So just know that courses that students take at MJC, as long as they're within a course range of 100 to 299, those courses could be transferable to any CSU or UC, okay? Courses outside of that course range typically are considered non-transferable courses. So, if student is planning to transfer, but they're only taking non-transferable courses, then they will probably spend a lot more time there compared to the ideal time that we recommend for students, okay? And later on, I'm going to talk about a few resources that we have available for your students at the community college, okay? Now, the next option is the California State University, which is part of, the 23 different campuses that we offer, and Stanislaus State is definitely your local CSU. And so within the CSU system, obviously admission requirements tend to be a little bit different than the community college. The degrees that we offer are different. Now we're more focused on bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, teaching credentials, and obviously, in our case, we offer a doctorate in educational leadership. Some other CSUs offer different types of doctorates. So, you're looking more of a 4-year education more than anything at the CSU level. Then we have the University of California, for which we have 10 throughout the state. The closest one to us is UC Merced. And then obviously the requirements tend to be a little bit different than the CSU. And then we have finally the private and independent universities. So for those, we have more than 75 throughout the state. Okay. Now we're thinking, when we're talking about a private university, we're thinking about like the Grand Canyon University, the Fresno Pacific, University of the Pacific, Stanford, USC, all those, independent universities fall under this category. So, again, just here in California, your students have many, many different options that they can go to right after they graduate from high school, depending on their educational goals. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now I'm going to focus more on the CSU system. That's the one that I work for. And so obviously that's the one that I have more information on. So the first thing that I want you guys to know about the CSU system is that there are 23 campuses, and some of them are considered impacted campuses, and some of us are considered non-impacted campuses. And so what that means really is that for those schools that are considered impacted, like the ones that you see here in the map with the yellow, dot next to them, these are universities, except Fresno. This one has to be updated. Fresno is no longer an impacted campus. But San Jose State, San Luis Obispo, Long Beach, Fullerton, and San Diego, these universities are considered impacted, which means that these campuses receive a lot more applications than the number of students that they can admit. Therefore, they have to control the number of students that they admit by increasing their admission requirements, mainly when it comes to GPA requirement. Okay. In the next slide, I'm going to talk about the CSU minimum admission requirements, but just know that for campuses such as San Diego, Fullerton, San Luis Obispo, sometimes they're looking for like a minimum GPA of 4.0. Okay. So you just want to let your students know and have this conversation with them, because a lot of students don't understand how impaction works, and they think that their admission requirements to come to, San Francisco State are going to be the same to go to San Diego State. And they're really not. They're very different campuses, both in location and environment, and also, in terms of admissions requirements. Now, with those campuses that I just mentioned, not only are they impacted at the campus level, they're also impacted at a major level. And so what that means for your students is that not only do they have to compete to get admitted into the campus, but they also have to compete to get admitted into the major of their choice. So for example, if your student wants to go to San Diego State to study business administration, more than likely, they're not going to get admitted to the major directly if they're admitted to the campus. First, they have to satisfy a set of prerequisites, have a certain GPA. Then after they meet those requirements, they have to apply. And then at that point, the department will consider if your student is admissible to the program or not. If they're not admissible, then at that point, they have to either declare a different major, or, they'll work with your students to give them the best options. Okay. So it's important, again, to know about impaction, because a lot of your students, they just come to you and say, hey, I'm going to go to San Luis Obispo, or I want to go to Fullerton, or San Jose State, right? But they don't know exactly if they meet all those admission requirements. So the next conversation that you want to have with them, if you're already at that stage where they're kind of deciding where they're going to be applying, if they're already in 12th grade or juniors at this point, then let's have that conversation about, like, let's take a look at the admission requirements for that campus. Let's go check it out. Take a tour and see if it's, it's the best fit for you. And then obviously, we can consider it. But like I said, a lot of students don't even think about admission requirements or impaction at this point. So it's a good thing that you as parents know, just so that you can, initiate the conversation with them. Okay. So at Stanislaus State, like I said, we are a non-impacted campus, and we are still considered your local campus. So that means that as long as your students satisfy the minimum admission requirements, their admission to Stan State or any of the other CSUs that are not impacted is guaranteed. Okay. Now, the only major that we have impacted here at Stanislaus State is nursing, it's pre-nursing and nursing. Okay. So what this means is that if your student meets a certain criteria for pre-nursing, especially when they're coming right out of high school, we consider, if they have a certain GPA in their English and their math and their sciences and their overall GPA, to determine if they can be admitted to pre-nursing. Now, when we say they're admitted into pre-nursing, it doesn't mean that they're in the program. It just means that they'll have priority registration when it comes to registering for the nursing prerequisites, like the anatomy, physiology, microbiology, and chemistry. And so there's a lot of our majors that do have those same prerequisites, but our pre-nursing students have priority registration in those classes. Now, once the student, takes their nursing prerequisites, then we recommend that they apply to the nursing program. And that is usually by the end of their second year here at Stan State. Our nursing program, just so you know, it only accepts about 30 students each semester. We receive more than 250 applications, but we only take the top 30 applications. And so our program, it is based on merit, meaning that the higher the GPA of the student, the more opportunities that they have to be admitted into the program. Currently, the majority of our students who get admitted to the nursing program come in with about a 3.9, 4.0 GPA. So if your student has talked to you about wanting to do nursing, in high school, please encourage them to do as best as they can to aim for the highest GPA they can. One, so that they could be admitted into the pre-nursing program, right? But once they start getting in this habit of making sure that they're always trying and getting their best grades, then once they actually get into the nursing prerequisite courses, they already have like that study habit. They already know that, it's going to be challenging, but, aiming for a 4.0, it's really what they're striving for. And so that will end up giving them more opportunities of being admitted into the nursing major. So typically, if a student has less than a 3.0, we start talking to them about, different options, different health majors, right? Health related majors. But with nursing, it's definitely a major that, we highly encourage the students to have at least a 3.8 GPA to consider applying for the program. Okay, so that's how impaction works. And so the last thing on that last slide is definitely make sure that you take the time to go with your students, to schedule campus tours. A lot of your students assume that they want to go to different campuses without ever visiting that specific campus. I recently had a student that in the fall decided to go to San Diego State, and she was from Los Baños. And so she had never taken a tour of the campus before. She just decided, I'm going to apply. She got admitted. She ended up going. Well, not even halfway through her fall semester, she called us and asked us if she could come to Stan State for the spring because it was not the campus that she wanted to be in. So, just to avoid a lot of waste of time, money, and headaches, definitely reach out, to reach out to the campuses, schedule tours. Even if your students are in middle school and elementary school, start taking them to, our local campus. If you want to start with us, for example, walk around the campus. It's a public institution. So definitely take them around, show them, the facilities that we have, tell them what, type of program students can study here and those things to just kind of get them motivated to go to college, right? The sooner we start, the easier that is going to get along the way. So, but especially if you have high school students, please definitely make sure that they don't submit an application to a campus before they visit, because obviously there is a $70 fee application fee with each of the campuses that they apply from the CSU system. And so you want to make sure that they're using, their money wise, and that they're applying to campuses that could be definitely a good fit for them. Okay, next one. All right, so talking about the admission requirements, like I said, for the CSU, all throughout the system, the minimum requirement for student to be admitted to a non-impacted campus is for them to graduate from high school. That's definitely one of the most important requirements, that they have a 2.5 GPA in their A through G courses. And so this GPA is only calculated between 10th and 12th grade. 9th grade does not get factored in. The grades in 9th grade do not get factored into the GPA. So it's only 10 through 12 GPA. However, if the student failed some courses between, especially in 9th grade, we recommend that they retake those courses, especially their A through G courses, by the end of their senior year, to make sure not only that they meet the 2.5 GPA, but that they also meet their A through G courses by the end of their senior year. Now, if you're not very familiar with those A through G courses, they are slightly different than the high school graduation courses, but I would recommend that you reach out to your high school counselor and ask if your student is on track with their A through G courses, or what is it that they need to be on track. And if you don't have that relationship, or you find it hard to connect with them, you can always, at the end, I'm going to give you my contact information, send me your students' transcripts, take a look at it, and I'll let you know what is it that we need to focus on to make sure the student is fully eligible by the end of the senior year. Okay. Now, SATs or ACT scores are no longer required for admission at the CSU level. However, if the student does end up taking SATs or ACTs, we will use them for placement purposes, specifically with English and math. Okay. So I know some of the schools still prepare students to take these tests, but at the CSU level, they're no longer considered for admission. So again, as long as the student has the 2.5 GPA, we will consider them for admission. If the student has below a 2.5, we consider a multi-factor assessment score, in which consider additional criteria. And I don't know if it's on the next slide. Patty, can you go to the next slide just to make sure? Oh, no, that's a list of A through Gs. So we use additional criteria. For example, if the student has work and they work to contribute with the household income, if they are first-generation college students, meaning that none of the parents graduated with a bachelor's degree. There we go. Thank you. If they're first-generation students, if, they participate in any educational programs, if they're involved in extracurricular activities, only if their GPA is 2.5 or below is when we consider all these factors that you see on the screen right now. Okay. Otherwise, these factors are not really something we consider for admission purposes, only if the student has below a 2.5 GPA. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, now, some students decide to go to a community college right after high school, and that's totally fine. Okay. And so in this case, if a student decides to go to a community college to transfer eventually, now the admission requirements change drastically. At this point, we no longer focus on their college, on their high school courses. Now the focus really goes into their college coursework. Okay, so most of the students who transfer come in as upper division transfer students. Okay, which means that students must complete at least 60 transferable units. And remember that course range that I told you about right now. So as long as students take courses 100 to 299 at MJC, for example, those courses are the ones that are going to count to meet the 60 transferable units. Ideally, completing the 60 transferable units takes about 2 years. So again, we just want to make sure that the student is on track. They know what classes they need to take. And if you need support with that, we do have, I said we will because we're having a new transfer advisor at the transfer center at MJC. She's currently one of our admissions counselors here, but she will be serving students at the transfer center directly at MJC to kind of help students make sure they understand what classes they need to take to complete their general education requirements, prerequisites to their major, and just to provide that added support that students need at the transfer center right there at MJC. And we also have transfer advisors at Delta and Merced College as well. So if your students are kind of like in those areas or planning on going to those community colleges, we do have additional support there too. Okay, so another requirement for transfer admissions is for students to have a 2.0 minimum. Okay, and be in good academic standing, meaning that they can continue enrolling at that institution only if they were not academically disqualified. Okay. They also need to complete their Golden Four courses. These are essential for a transfer admission with a C minus or better. And so that is a class in speech and English composition, critical thinking, and college level math. Okay. So again, if your student is planning on going to a community college and eventually transferring to Stan State or any other CSU, it's super important that they meet with a representative from that institution to make sure that the student is taking the right classes that they need to transfer successfully, ideally within 2 years. Now, the community college is also, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, it's also a great option for students who are currently in high school and they want to take advantage of the dual enrollment program at MJC. Okay, so what that does, it allows your students while they're in high school to take some of the college courses for free at the local community college. And so by the time they graduate from high school, not only are they graduating with their high school diploma, but they're also graduating with college credit. They will still be considered first-time freshmen, so the high school requirements that we saw earlier still apply to them, except that when they come in, let's just say to Stan State, they will send their transcripts so that we can apply the college credit that they have already earned. And so that allows them to graduate sooner and obviously avoid taking or retaking classes that they have already fulfilled, right? So if your student is interested in doing that early college or dual enrollment program, make sure you talk to your school counselors to see if your student qualifies to do that program. Okay. Next slide. Okay. Now campus facts. So it's really important, like I said at the beginning, for your students to understand that the campus that they're going to choose would be the right fit for them. Okay. Like I said, I've seen so many different cases every semester. I come across at least 2 or 3 students who selected the wrong campus based on what they would see on social media, based on where their friends were going to. And so, it wasn't really what they wanted. They just went there for different reasons. So something that I would recommend that as you are exploring campuses with your students or college options, that you consider a couple facts. Okay. One is how many students are enrolled in that institution. That is very, very important. At least, for example, here at Stan State, we're considered a mid-sized campus. So we have less than 10,000 students. And so our student to faculty ratio is actually, it came down a little bit more. So now it's 17-1, meaning that your students do have more of that one-on-one connection with their faculty, which is ideal in the sense that your students get more mentorship opportunities, they get more support during their lectures. Your professors do actually get to know your students by name. They're not just another number in the class. And our classes are very small. So for students who prefer that small environment, close to what they have been, experiencing since kindergarten, then coming to a campus that offers that same environment is going to be essential for them, right? But there are other campuses that have like 40,000, almost 42,000 students. And so that means that the classes tend to be a lot, larger, meaning that sometimes professors do not take role in classes. And so they don't know if your students show up to class or not. They don't have time to worry about attendance. And so at the end of the day, in a lot of our students' cases, is that they're like, you know what, the professor doesn't take role. They don't care if I go to class or not. So I'm going to skip class for today, and I'm going to skip class another day. Who cares? They don't know. But at the end of the day, final exams come, then the students are the only ones that have, that have lost in that situation because they missed on a lot of the content. And at the end of the day, they might end up failing courses. So, have those conversations with your students. Talk to them about where is it that they see themselves? Like, do they picture themselves in small classroom environments or, in those auditorium lecture halls of 200, 300 students? So definitely, a conversation to have with them. And it's definitely a factor to consider as they're selecting the different colleges that they want to apply to. Okay. Here at Stanislaus State, the majority of our students are first generation students, meaning that they are the first ones in their family experiencing college for the first time. And so obviously we do run into a lot more challenges compared to other students whose parents have already gone through, the higher education system. And so just know that we understand, specifically here at Stan State, the population of students that we work with, and we try to provide all the support possible to ensure that our students meet their graduation goal. Just know that for us, it's not just about students coming into the campus or getting admitted. Our goal at the end of the day is for students to graduate. And at the end of the day, like I said, we do a lot of different programming. We have a lot of student support to make sure that our students are served as best as possible to reach that goal. Okay. And also another thing to keep in mind is that our students definitely want to make sure that the campus that they select, they offer the major that they're interested in, because otherwise, there's no point of going over to Cal Poly Pomona when, they want to do a major that is not offered there. Then what's the purpose of that? And there's many different ways on how students can do a college search to see what campuses do offer their specific majors. Here at Stan State, unfortunately, we don't offer engineering, we don't offer architecture, and so graphic design or interior design or hospitality, those are programs that they're not really they're not offered here on our campus. So at that point, we highly recommend students to look for campuses that do focus on those majors and that they do offer what they're interested in. Okay, next one. Okay, so now when it comes to majors, like I said, every campus will offer different programs, okay? Here at Stanislaus State, some of our most popular majors are business administration, criminal justice, psychology, biological sciences, and liberal studies, okay? So like I said earlier, all those programs, although they're popular majors, are not impacted with the exception of nursing. So as long as students get admitted to the campus, they're automatically admitted to the major of their choice. Okay, so it's not like they have to wait 2 years to apply and see if they get in or not. The only one that works like that, it's nursing. And so, typically a lot of our students also come in as undeclared. And so sometimes we come across parents and students who say, Rocio, my student is going to hold off to go to college because they have no idea what they want to do. And so, I typically tell them that they can come and declare. Students have 2 years to declare a major because within those first 2 years, they take what we call the general education classes. They have to take those classes regardless of the major that they go into. It is actually a bachelor's degree requirement. So in the meantime, for that GE, students take classes in oral communication, speech, and history, and math, science, humanities, arts. There's a lot of different courses that come into play at that point. And so that is how typically a lot of our students figure out what major they want to go into. Maybe they took a psychology class and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm, in love with psychology. I want to continue this path. Or they say, you know what, no, psychology is definitely not my thing. Let me go more into the economic route, So there's a lot of different ways for students to figure out what majors they want to go into. We have an amazing career development center too, and career coaches that help your students kind of understand, get to know themselves, and then help them figure out what careers they could go into based on what they like or dislike. So not knowing what you want to study is not a reason anymore for students to stay out of going to college, because whether it's at the community college or at Stan State, then at that point students need to they will get a lot of guidance and especially take their general education classes, and hopefully we can figure it out at that point. Okay, so next. All right. So when it comes to student support, like I said, now, obviously you guys have been the directors of your students' lives since they were pretty much, in your belly for months. And so now, when students decide to go to college, their role is of becoming a more independent student, right? So now your role as parents, your role as family is more of a support, being more of a support system for your students. And so, although you're not going to have the same type of involvement um, with your students' higher education journey, just know that we have a lot of different support programs here at the university that are designed to help your students succeed. We have all the way from basic needs. So let's just say your student lives off campus and for some reason they came across an obstacle and they're not able to pay for their rent, the next month, they can always come to our basic needs program and ask for, an emergency grant or something like that. And they'll figure out all the resources that they can provide to your students. We have a warrior food pantry, as you see here in the picture, where students can come every single week and get 10 items from everything we have in the store to help them get through the week. And then we do food box distributions twice a month as well. And students do not need to apply anywhere. They don't need to qualify specifically for it. It's more of a way of, hey, you're a student here, take advantage of all the resources that we have for you, and students really, really love that. We have counseling and psychological services. We understand that sometimes paying for therapy off campus, it's really, really expensive unless you have really good insurance. But at the same time, here, students have access to psychological counseling for free. They do individual therapy, group therapy. We're just here to support students, and we have professional doctors that work with your students and clinicians that work with your students. So definitely encourage them that if at any point they attend Stan State or any other campus, to go and research the different support services that we have for them, because they're completely free. Students don't have to worry about, paying any additional fees for that. And they are available to them at all times, including touring services, student health center, veteran affairs. I mean, we do a little bit of everything for our students. So definitely encourage them to ask for help when they need it. Okay. Next one. Yeah, so in terms of academic resources, we do have advising and success centers. So that is where students will meet with academic advisors to make sure they're on track with their general education courses. Once they actually declare a major, they actually meet with their own faculty to design their roadmap for the next couple semesters in terms of what the classes that they need to take based on their major. So who better than their faculty to advise them and what is it that they need. But in terms of like general education advising, again, we have amazing academic counselors that are here to help your students succeed. We have the Learning Commons, which is definitely our tutoring center, our writing lab, our math lab as well. So we do a little bit of everything with our students to make sure that if they need any support, there are some classes actually that do require students to go to the Learning Commons at least once a week to get support with their writing, with their math, or any other subject. So, there's plenty of student programs too that are here to provide peer mentorship for students, faculty mentorships, and at the end of the day, again, the student success is pretty much what we work for. Okay. Next one, let's talk a little bit about financial aid. And then once I go through we're almost done with the presentation, I'll give you time and we'll go ahead and answer all the questions that you have, okay? Now, with financial aid, as of now, our tuition is about $8,246 per year. And that was for the 2024-2025 academic year. Now, although our tuition is this much, we also understand that a lot of our students really need financial assistance. And so 80% of our students do receive some type of financial aid. We do offer about 1,100 different internal scholarships at Stan State, not including all the ones that are available off campus. So a year, we typically disperse about $100 million in financial aid and scholarships to our students. So I mean, just alone, 80% of our students receive financial aid, and 76% of them don't have to pay a single penny out of their pocket to pay for their education here at Stanislaus State. Okay, so now next slide, please. How do you get that financial aid? So there's 4 different types of aid, and you will get those by applying to the FAFSA, submitting your FAFSA. So students start submitting FAFSA their senior year. Typically, it opens October 1st. This year is going to close on March 3rd. So if your students need a support with filling out their FAFSA, typically the schools will offer application workshops as well. Okay, but your students need to start filling out the FAFSA. And so once they do that, they also add the list of schools that they're applying for. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go to those schools, but if they apply to 5 different CSUs, community college, maybe a private university, on their FAFSA, they will list all these different institutions that they apply to, because what they will do is that each campus will prepare a different financial aid offer to the student based on the cost of attendance and how much the family can contribute to the student's education. And so at the end of the day, they will offer a financial aid package to the student that includes 4 different kinds of financial aid. Okay, so the first one we have is grants. So we have federal, state grant, and institutional grants as well. So if this is where most of the students get their financial aid from, they receive Pell Grants, Cal Grant, and then, you know, at the CSU, we have the State University Grant. And so this is money that is free. The students do not have to pay it back after they graduate from college. But at the same time, you know, it's based on their grades, it's based on their financial need and all those things. So definitely, again, this is where most of the financial aid comes from. Then we have the scholarships. Scholarships are also free, except that at this point, students need to apply for scholarships separately. Every scholarship has different requirements. And so we always recommend students to start looking for scholarships, typically 11th and 12th grade. And then obviously after that, once they're in college, every single year, there's many scholarships that they can apply to. And so, again, those are free. They don't have to pay them back. Then we have work study. So work study is also free in the sense that it doesn't have to be paid back after students graduate. At this point, students, though, they have to find a job on campus. Sometimes they work with some off-campus organizations as well, but they can work a max of 20 hours a week. And so the money or the check that they get every month for the hours they work typically comes from this work study fund, which is about $5,000 a year. Okay, and last but not least, we might also offer your students federal student loans. And so these ones do have to be paid back at the end once students graduate from college. And I mean, once they're done with their master's, once they're done with their PhD, they decide to go that route. The good thing about the federal loans is that they're very low interest. And again, they go under your student's name. So they're not necessarily, unless you pull out like a parent loan, which it works as a regular, personal loan, but most of the students go with like the federal loans that go under their name, and it would not affect, there's no credit check, and obviously it doesn't affect the parents' credit, or it doesn't go under them at any point. And so, like I said, most of our students do receive the free financial aid. The very low, a very low number of our students do pull out loans, maybe because they have to live on campus or they really need those loans to get themselves through the year. But the majority of our students, they get their tuition fully covered through these type of financial aid options, and they don't necessarily need to pull out any loans. But again, it's the last resource, but most of our students don't have a need to take out any federal loans. Okay, next one. And so I love to share this with families and students, because it's really hard to understand really how, the financial aid works, and how do we know if we have to pay out of pocket? How do we know, how much is covered and things like that? So the first thing you guys want to know, and I always recommend that you take a screenshot of this so that we can study it later, or that you can, like, when you have doubts, you can refer to it. But technically, the financial aid, or the FAFSA, your students start filling it out in 12th grade. Okay, between October 1st, and like I said, in this case, it's going up to March 3rd. And so once your students fill out the FAFSA, then in there, they're going to include the different institutions that they apply to. Then the students will start receiving their financial aid award letters. So for our current seniors who apply to Stan State or any other CSUs, and they're filling out their FAFSA, typically they will start hearing from colleges in the next couple weeks. Okay, so our goal is for students to have a financial aid award ready by May 1st, which is when they have to accept admission at any of the other CSUs or colleges. And so we typically try to let the student know how much aid they're going to be awarded at our institution before they decide whether, this is the right campus for them or not. We obviously want them to make a well-informed decision when they're choosing the campus that they're going to go to. And so having a financial award ready for them is essential to make that decision. Now, once the student decides what college they're going to go to, then that's when they accept or decline their financial aid award. And I said decline because in some cases, like I said, we do offer loans to students, but they don't have to take out the loans. They can automatically decline any loan that gets offered to them if they're not going to need it. And they will just keep all the free aid. Okay, so let's just assume that your student qualifies for about $16,000 a year. And although this is an example, it's something that I have seen throughout the years for some of our students. So assuming that your student gets, like, the free financial aid of the Pell Grant, Cal Grant, scholarships, work study, and all those good things, assuming that they get offered about $16,000 a year, the way that it works is that we divide that aid, that full year into two, which is half for the fall semester and half for the spring semester, meaning that the student will get about $8,000 a semester. For those $8,000, then we pay the tuition. And this is just an example, assuming that our tuition is $4,000 a semester. Then the rest of the money after the tuition gets paid, the rest of the money either goes to housing if the student is planning to live on campus, or the student gets that money through like a personal check or direct deposit if they sign up for it. And they can use this money to pay for their books, school supplies, their first car, their first laptop, whatever, needs your student has. Sometimes students just save it. And if they're planning on taking like winter courses and they need to pay out of pocket, well, technically it's not really paying out of pocket because they're going to have this money saved for from financial aid. So that's the cycle, and students have to renew the FAFSA every single year until they're completely done with their college education. But we always recommend students and parents not to auto disqualify themselves because, at the end of the day, you might think your income is too high, but maybe not for financial aid purposes. And who knows, your income could change the following year. So definitely encourage your students to apply. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing is going to happen to your students except that they might qualify for really good financial aid. Okay, next one. All right, and last but not least, I want you guys to know and encourage your students to understand that there is a process for your students who, after they apply to different universities. So here at Stanislaus State, for our current seniors, our application deadline is coming up on January 31st. So if you have any seniors that will meet these first-time freshman requirements, or they're transfer students, but they haven't applied yet for fall 2025, the deadline will be coming up on January 31st. So if you need any support with that or help with the application, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll be here to support you guys with that. Now, again, once they apply, here's the website where they can start applying. There is a $70 application fee for each of the CSUs that they apply to. It's different for UCs and community colleges, but for the CSU, it's a $70 application fee. If they qualify for the fee waiver, which is embedded in their application, then they can apply up to 4 CSUs for free. Okay. Otherwise, it's $70 for each school that they submit an application to. I highly encourage after that, obviously, to schedule a campus tour to meet dates and deadlines. Just remind your students that after they apply, typically the way that we do things here at Stan State is we send them a confirmation email with instructions on how to log into their student portal, their student email. That's how they're going to keep track of their admission status. Okay. And so then if they're admitted, obviously we will send them an admission packet to their mail. And so in that admit packet, we have all the dates, deadlines that they have to satisfy, important reminders, information about submitting transcripts and all these things. So encourage them to know that there's a whole process that they need to do before they actually register in classes and participate in their new student orientation before they begin classes. Because a lot of students think, well, I just submitted my application and wait until like the semester begins. And they're like, well, I never heard anything about, my admission or anything about Stan State. But in reality, we were sending all this communication and the student never opened it. So definitely encourage them to look at that. And again, this is for all the campuses that they apply to. It's not just for one, it's for all the campuses. So having a good email, keeping track of all the incoming email that comes from all the different institutions would be the best way to keep track of everything that they need to do within the next couple months. Okay. And next one, definitely stay connected. I know we're all, in social media somehow at this point. So if you want to start following us or encourage your students to start following us to learn more about Stanislaus State, I feel like a lot of our local students, unfortunately, sometimes they don't even know what they have in their backyard, right? I've seen so many students from our local high schools that had never been to our campus before. They say, I'm not going to Stan State, but they've never been to our campus before. And so once they're actually here, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you guys offer all these different services. I didn't know the campus was this beautiful. So definitely encourage your students to schedule a campus tour, to connect with us and learn a little bit more about what Stan State it's really about. And then the next slide has my contact information. So I know I speak a lot, I talk a lot. So if you guys have any questions, or do you want me to look at your student case in particular, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. In case I don't pick up my phone, leave me a voicemail. Right now, I'm working on my voicemails. It's been nonstop since we came back from the holidays, but definitely leave me a voicemail. I do respond faster through email too. So you have both my direct office number and my email. And if there's anything that I can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. And I know Patty maybe has an announcement, and then we'll move on to answer the questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Rocio, for all this great information that you gave to our families. And as she said, we were going to share some resources with our families and then move on to the questions. For our class schedules and much more, you can go to Modesto City Schools website. If you would like to change the language here, this is where you will select the language of your preference. To get to our calendar, select the Parent tab and then select the Parent Engagement and Outreach. Once you've clicked on the Parent Engagement Outreach tab, it will bring you to our department homepage for our information and where you can select the training calendar. Here you can find all the scheduled parent classes, and you can see here we've highlighted today's date. If any of the topics are of interest to you, and regardless of what school might be hosting the event, all of Modesto City Schools parents are welcome to attend. And as you can see here, we've highlighted today's class, and by clicking on that class, you can automatically join through this our calendar. So at this time, Rocio, we'll take questions from our families. You can also type in your question in the chat, and you can also do the raise hand icon so that you can ask your question directly to Rocio. Rocio, I do have a question or possibly a statement from Sierra. Sierra, you do say, what if your child is already expected at Stan State? Sierra, if you're still with us, do you want to go ahead and turn on your mic and maybe clarify your statement to Rocio? I'm not sure if she's still with us, but
yeah. So if your student is has been admitted or accepted to Stanislaus State already, then my next biggest recommendation for them is to, one, come and check out the campus if you haven't done it yet, okay? Because obviously the deadline to accept admission will be coming up on May 1st. You can always do it before then if you know that Stan State is definitely the campus that you're going to come to. But I highly encourage you to come and check it out before your student makes a decision. I think that always helps if you're kind of like in the, like borderline between us and another campus. Other than that, is just making sure that your student is meeting the dates and deadlines, as I mentioned in that, other slide that I had. Make sure that, they submit their official transcripts so that we can start working on their, classes for the fall semester. Make sure that, they fill out their FAFSA, make sure that they have all their ducks in a row to make sure that they're, not missing anything by the time that they have to accept their admission. The other thing too is you have, yes.
Question about we do have VA benefits. I just don't know how to get access to them. I've called the VA. I don't know what forms you guys would need.
Okay, well, contact me directly, and I can go ahead and send me an email if you can, and then I'll put you in contact with our VA representative here at Stan State, and they will let you know exactly what is it that we need. But yeah, I will definitely respond to you and provide you the contact information of the person in charge of VA benefits so that they can let you know what are your next steps.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Then do you guys have baseball programs? Because my son's currently in sports.
Yes.
I know.
Yes, so
he really wanted to do engineering, but then I heard you guys don't have that, so now I don't know what he'll want to do.
Exactly. So we do have sports, and I'm going to put CSU degrees. I'm putting a website, degrees.calstate.edu. So on the chat, I just added a website that you guys can check out with your students. And in here, you can also do a search by major within the CSU. Okay, so if he wants to do engineering, he can, depending on the engineering he wants to do, he can look at probably Sac State, Fresno State, Cal Poly. There's a lot of different options, but although we don't necessarily offer engineering, we do have a great baseball program. We're NCAA Division II in sports, and baseball is definitely one of the sports, the most popular sports that we offer on campus. So yeah, we have baseball, basketball, cross country, track and field, soccer, golf. So we have a little bit of everything, except football, though.
Thank you, Rocio. And thank you, Sarah, for clarifying your comment and question. Our next question says, hi, is this information also, does it also apply for older adults interested in going back to school or going back to the university?
Yes. Totally. So, you'll be surprised to know that our student population is just not students who come out right after high school. We have a lot of adult learners here at Stanislaus State. And so if you are interested in retaking your education, continuing, then we will do kind of a little bit of assessment, right? Did you attend a community college or other institutions after you graduated from high school? If that was not the case, then we can still go back to your considering you as a first-time freshman, seeing if you met the A through G requirements when you were in high school. So it really depends on what applies to you, but basically it's the same thing. So no matter your age, you have the access to education here at Stan State, and I'll be here to support you with that.
Thank you, Rocio.
Mhm.
Gerardo asks, how are students placed if they do not take the SATs?
So we do multiple measures. And so what that means is that we consider if the student has taken any advanced placement exams, for example, AP or IB. We determine if the student has taken any college level courses in English and math at the community college through dual enrollment program. We determine if that's not the case, then we determine the student's GPA in math and English. Then we determine SATs or ACT scores if they have them. But again, there's different ways for us to determine placement based on all those different factors. And so it's not just SATs or ACTs. We take a look at everything else as well.
Thank you. Somebody also asked, what is considered college level math?
College level math at MJC, if we're talking specifically at MJC, is any math with a course number 100 to 299. So for example, they have college algebra, statistics, which is math 134. They have trigonometry, pre-calculus. So your key here, if you're thinking about MJC, if there's a different community college, let me know. But if you're thinking about MJC, college level math at MJC, it's considered 100 to 299. So any math with a course number 100 to 299. If you are obviously here at Stan State, all the college courses that we offer are college level. So there's no more remedial or anything like that. So it really depends on what institution you're talking about. But if it's MJC 100 to 299, it's considered college level math. Oh, yes. MJC 101 Woodward. Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Christina asks, can you still apply to Stan State if you haven't finished the FAFSA?
Yes, you can. As a matter of fact, we always encourage students to do the college application first, and then do the financial aid. But there's no right or wrong order on how to do things. Obviously, once we get your admissions application, and then if you submit your FAFSA application later on, then we're going to be able to link it together. You just want to make sure that you add the correct social security number so that we can match it. We can pull the right admission and FAFSA application for you. Okay. Sometimes students say, well, I applied to Stan State and I submitted my FAFSA, but I haven't heard from financial aid, but it's because they forgot to put in their social security number on their application, on their FAFSA application. And so that delays the whole process, or sometimes the names don't match. But yeah, you can still apply to Stan State, even if you haven't done the FAFSA, that's totally fine. Eventually, we're going to recommend you to fill out your FAFSA just so that we can work out a financial aid award for you.
Thank you, Rocio.
Yes.
The next question is, how do we get our official MJC transcript to you?
Yes, so you can always send them. So you would only send official MJC transcripts if you have already an application on file with us. We don't recommend that you send those transcripts before you apply, just because they're going to come to a not found pile, because we're not going to be able to link it to an application. Okay. But if you have already applied, then you can request them through, I think it's called the National Student Clearinghouse, and MJC. If you search up MJC transcripts, it's going to have you fill out a form. It's going to take you to that like National Student Clearinghouse, and you're going to do a request. And once in the form, you're going to put that you want your transcripts to go to admissions@csustan.edu, which I put it right here in the chat. And so we will receive them electronically. Or, if you prefer, you can also have them sent to me and I'll forward them to admissions, whichever one's the best way for you. But do not request your official transcripts to be sent to us before you submit an application to us. In your application, you're going to be able to enter all your manually enter your transcript or the courses that you have taken so far, all the institutions you have attended. And so that's what we're going to use to make a conditional admission, right? And so if we see that, something's off and we cannot determine eligibility based on the information you enter in your application, then that's when we're going to request transcripts to determine eligibility. But at the end of the day, we're going to request final official transcripts from all the institutions you attended, just to make sure that we're giving you credit for all the courses that you have done, making sure we're tackling all your general education prerequisites to your major and things like that. Okay.
Thank you, Rocio.
Yes.
Oliva asked if you can talk a little bit about the housing program.
Yes. So our housing is one of the most iconic, aspects of Stanislaus State. And believe it or not, a lot of our local students do live on campus. And many of our younger students decide or compromise with parents and say, hey, I want to be able to have a college experience without necessarily moving really far away. And they decide to live on campus, which is highly recommended for students to kind of get acclimated to that first year of college here at Stan State. But generally speaking, our housing has housing for freshmen and obviously upper division transfer students. And so the way that it works is freshmen have options of choosing suites or apartments. And so what that means is that students get, if they have a suite, they don't have a full kitchen in their suite, and they can have a single suite, which means that they can have their own room, but share the suite with our other students. Or they can have doubles, meaning they share the room with another student, or triples, which is they share the room with 2 more students. But if they choose an apartment, those ones do have a small kitchen. The students have their own room, and it does provide them that privacy. Now, in terms of cost of housing, it's really affordable, believe it or not, compared to other CSUs. Is for an apartment, which is like the most expensive option of living on campus, and with a minimum meal plan, because it is required for students to have it here. Sometimes students end up paying about $12,000 a year, and it's all inclusive. So utilities and obviously the meal plan, the room and board, and if financial aid does get applied to that, what students end up paying, it's really a lot less than that. I've seen students pay $250 a month out of their pocket after financial aid kicks in and covers some of that housing fees that they have. And so it's very affordable. They provide a lot of support to your students, both through peer academic leaders, through residential advisors, through actual academic advisors. So students who do live on campus do tend to graduate at a much faster rate than other students, just because they don't have as many distractions. They're all, focused on living on campus. All the resources that they need are pretty much, steps away from the room. And so it's a great experience. They do offer housing tours as well. So if you guys are interested in at least checking it out and see if it's something that your students, or you, if you're a transfer student, are inclined to, then definitely reach out to me, and I'll provide you with their contact information so that you can schedule a tour with them.
That's awesome. Great information on that housing information. Well,
Yeah,
we
of
don't
course.
have any more questions, so we're going to go ahead and continue at this time.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you once again, Rocio, for all of
Mhm.
that great information. You gave the one yesterday as well, and it was awesome as well. So thank you for your time and all that great information you gave to our parents. Parents,
Sounds good.
finally,
Thank
here's
you.
our contact information for our department along with the bit.ly QR code, which will take you directly to our page. Please feel free to contact us at any time for more parent-related information. Also, don't forget to fill out the survey that is in the chat area to give us feedback. Your completed survey will be entered into a giveaway for a free refurbished laptop. You have up until midnight tonight to complete that survey. Once again, we want to thank all of you for joining us today. Goodbye, everyone. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.